500 years ago, Michel de Montaigne, something like that, said, "My life has been filled with terrible misfortune, most of which never happen. Do you worry about everything? Are you constantly assuming that the worst is going to happen? Is your brain constantly catastrophizing? And it's really bothering you, and it's controlling your mind, and it's controlling your life, and it's adding a ton of stress to your life." If that's you, make sure to watch this entire video. Also, click subscribe, join the Fearless family. Make sure to comment if you struggle with this, and also if you have any questions. Let's get going. I want to tell you a story. So, I used to work at a call center, and if you work at a call center or have worked at a call center, I'm going to say a prayer for you right now. Lord, please help them. Please help them. No, working at a call center is terrible. You never want to work at a call center. Have you ever seen that movie Office Space? Comment below if you've seen that movie. You need to watch it if you haven't. It's hilarious. But this guy has like 8 different bosses, and they're always like, "Hey, did you put the cover sheet on the TPS report?" And then another boss will show up and say the same thing. But anyway, I would basically take phone calls for people that were calling in about their extended warranty. It's like the worst job ever. They'd be like, "Yeah, I got mad and threw a baseball at my TV. You know, is that covered?" And I'd be like, "No, it's not covered." And then they'd get really angry, and they would basically leave me a bad survey. And the survey at the end of the call was what determined my bonuses. And it was really frustrating. And so anyway, I basically was very stressed at this job. I mean, it was just back to back to back to back calls, and there was just no break. I mean, sometimes there were breaks, but a lot of times it was back to back calls. And also, I just wasn't living a healthy life. I was not prioritizing rest. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I wasn't doing any body relaxation exercises. I was connected to a bunch of very toxic people. It was just bad. But I was still very good at my job. And in fact, one time I basically won this award. I think they called it the VIP award. And I think I was like either number 1 or number 2 in my entire department for my call stats, you know, how long the person was on the phone and blah, 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 blah. All those things. Survey scores, even despite people giving me bad surveys because they were mad that they were denied coverage or whatever, I still was getting really good surveys. I worked very, very hard. So I'm telling you that, not to brag, but to tell you that despite that, I walked into that call center every single day and thought I was going to get fired. Every day, I would check my email, and for some reason, I was expecting to get fired. My mind told me, "Oh, this is the day that you're going to get that email that, Jordan, we've got to let you go." And I had a bunch of other irrational fears as well, but I'll never forget that. And every time that I got a phone call as well, I was expecting it to be bad news. And my mind was just constantly giving me the catastrophic scenario. And now it no longer happens at all. In fact, I have so rewired myself that I actually assume the best about everything. My mind still gives me a negative thought every now and then. That's part of being human. But for the most part, I literally assume the best about most things. And it didn't happen by accident. And I'm going to tell you actually 3 things that you can do to rewire your brain at the end of this video. So make sure to finish this. So here's what you need to know. Here's the science that you need to know. If you do not accept this, you are in for a very, very, very difficult life. We are not wired for happiness. We are wired for survival. And the quicker that you accept that, the quicker that you can be intentional and do things that will allow you to override this survival disposition. Your brain is designed to keep you alive, not to make you happy. And everything that you need to do to feel joy and meaning and be happy in life requires you to feel a level of emotional distress to obtain those things. And the brain registers emotional distress and physical pain as the same thing. It's the anterior cingulate cortex and the anterior insula. That means that whenever you want to go to the gym, whenever you want to change your diet, whenever you want to learn that new skill, whenever you need to wake up early in the morning to do a healthy morning routine, your brain is going to fight you on that. Your brain thinks that those things are physically dangerous because they involve emotional distress. And your brain also is wired to look for threat everywhere. We survived because we have anxious ancestors. In the African savannah, our ancient ancestors were very anxious. They believed, or their brain got wired to believe that there's a tiger everywhere because, or a lion, whatever you want to say. Lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. Wild animals everywhere because there were. Now, those animals are at the zoo and we go and visit them, which I think is absolutely terrible. Every time my wife and I go to the zoo, I'm like, dude, this is like prison. I feel terrible that I'm paying money for this, but yet we just keep going. So yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, all the lions are locked up at the zoos. And while there is always risk of danger for most people in, let's say, the Western world especially, you're relatively safe. In fact, if you look at it from a statistical perspective, we are literally living in one of the safest times, the safest time in human history. There's a book, his name's Steven Pinker. I believe the book is called The Better Angels of Our Nature or something like that. He goes over all the statistics and you would be blown away. What the mass media is telling you is not true. The mass media wants you to believe that we're just on the brink of, World War III, or, we're just living in just terribly dangerous times. And that's just because you're hearing about all kinds of terrible things because of TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. There's always been terrible things happening. Our awareness has increased. Actually, as far as the amount of terrible things happening, it's actually the least that it's been in human history. I want to be very clear. There's still absolutely terrible things happening. Look at North Korea. There's an entire country that is enslaved by an evil dictator. I mean, there's definitely terrible things happening, but it's the least that it's been in human history. But anyway, with that being said, we are relatively safe, all right? Like, look around you right now. Look around. Is there any immediate physical danger? Not could something cause you any danger, but is it causing you any danger? The answer is most likely no, right? So we're physically safe, but yet our brain is still wired from the time that we're born to look for threat everywhere, because that's what kept our ancient ancestors alive. So there needs to be a rewiring, and because of something called neuroplasticity, our brain's ability to reprogram, we can rewire. Now, are we going to be able to fully override our brain's natural disposition towards looking for threat? No. That would probably take 20 lifetimes. Can we make a lot of progress and rewire to the point where our brain perceiving threat in a lot of places where there isn't threat doesn't happen very often? Yeah, we can. I know because I'm experiencing it, right? Most of the time, I've wired my brain to assume the best. And it's taken years and years and years and years. So here's the survival advantage to catastrophizing. If we assume that everything is dangerous, then we won't take any risk that may get us killed. Remember, that's how our ancient ancestors survived. Let's not take any risks, right? Because there's tigers everywhere. There's lions everywhere. There's bears everywhere. Oh my. If you've seen... what is that movie with Dorothy? And anyway, The Wizard of Oz, that was funny. If it probably wasn't funny anyway, because my jokes are not funny. No need to laugh. But my wife thinks they're funny though, for now, and I'm hoping that doesn't wear off. I'm screwed if she ever stops thinking I'm funny, because they're never going to stop. But anyway, if I assume that everything is a threat, then that means that I'm going to mitigate how much risk that I take, which is going to increase the chances of survival. But because there are no lions present, our brain has to find some way to turn our day-to-day life into a threat. So our brain in catastrophic risk assessment starts to catastrophize all these regular, ordinary things. Like, for example, let's say you have kids. Your brain is going to all of a sudden catastrophize and say, oh God, well, what if they get killed? Oh God, what if you die early and you won't be there to raise them? Oh God, what if they get sick? Oh God, what if this, what if this, what if this? Like I told you at the beginning, right? I showed up for work and there was literally like no logical reason that I should be afraid of losing my job whenever I was one of the best employees, but yet I was in a very anxious state. And my catastrophic brain was like, oh God, what if you lose your job? What if you accidentally, say something mean to a customer and you get fired? And just, and it's funny, I actually talked to my brother, who's also a very hard worker, and all credit goes to my dad for that. He raised us to be very hard workers. I actually talked to him. This was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. He also is always like number 1, number 2, or number 3 in whatever company he works for. He's just like a go-getter. And he was like, yeah, dude, I'm always worried that I'm going to get fired. And I was like, it's very interesting. It's like you see somebody who's super successful and you don't really understand what's going on in the inside of them, right? Sometimes the reason that they work so hard is because they're terrified that if they don't work harder than anybody else, that they're going to get fired. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But our brain is going to basically catastrophize all these regular, ordinary things and find a way to turn them into a threat. But what I want to tell you is just because your brain is feeding you all these things and it's making you feel like you need to be worried all the time doesn't mean that it's helping you. In fact, I'm going to introduce you to a principle that forever changed my life. It's this principle that actually being stressed out doesn't help you, it actually hurts you. Your brain has deceived you into thinking that you assuming the worst about everything is actually helping you somehow. When in reality, it's making you so stressed out that if bad things were to happen, you're now in such a terrible state that you're not going to be as well equipped to deal with it. Not to mention, whenever you walk around stressed, it suppresses your immune system and it will make you sick, and it literally eventually can kill you. If you walk around stressed for very, 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 very long periods of time, you're opening yourself up to increased sickness and disease. So I don't say that to scare you, but I just tell you that to show you the reality that this isn't helping you. You constantly preparing for the worst case scenario and just obsessing over these catastrophic scenarios in your mind all the time, it's doing nothing but hurt you. Let's look at the facts. So there was actually a study that was done. In this study, people were asked to write down their worries over an extended period of time and then identify which of their imagined misfortunes did not actually happen. What do you think the percentage was of the amount of times that their fears did not happen? What if I told you that it was 85% of what people were worried about didn't happen in this study? 85%. So the vast majority of the time, what they were worried about did not happen. That means 15% of the time, what they were worried about did happen. But then, wait, there's more. 79% of the people who did have the thing that they were worried about happen said that they could handle the difficulty better than they expected, or the difficulty taught them a lesson worth learning. What's the takeaway from that? Statistically, 97% of what you were worried about is either not going to happen, or if it did happen, you would be able to handle it just fine and walk away better from it. Which means that, technically speaking, there is only a 3% chance that something bad is going to happen that you won't be able to handle very well. But what if I told you that you can actually decrease that percentage? You can actually make it to where the chances that something bad happened that you weren't able to handle well is very, 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 very low. And here are those tips. Number one, calm the body, right? Whenever your brain is presenting you with these catastrophic scenarios, right? This is how you're going to start to desensitize your catastrophic brain, get your brain to start assuming the best about things more often. It's never going to be 100%, as well as this will enhance your ability to deal with bad things if they do happen. Number one, you calm the body. Why? Whenever you relax your muscles, it increases access to the prefrontal cortex, which is logical, critical, creative, and contextual thinking, which is opposite of catastrophic thinking, right? Catastrophic thinking is not based on logic. It's not based on context. Look at the statistics. The statistics are 97% of the time, what you're worried about is either not going to happen at all, or if it did happen, you'll be able to handle it very well, or you'll be able to learn something from it. So what happens is you experience sensory data that is similar to painful things from your past, and there's a shutdown of the prefrontal cortex, and your body goes into fight, flight, or freeze response, and it seems logical to you. But the brain is very deceptive. Your emotions are very deceptive. Don't assume that because something seems logical that it is logical, and don't assume that because you feel like you're helping yourself that you are helping yourself. It's actually opposite. It's illogical, and it's not only hurting you, but as I said, it eventually can cause extreme damage if you walk around stressed for very long periods of time. It suppresses your immune system. It breaks your body down. If you really want to be there for the people that you love, you'll start to break these patterns. But anyway, whenever you calm the body, it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's like a brake pedal, right? Because what's happened is, again, you're experiencing sensory data that's similar to painful things from your past, and it's caused an elevation of sympathetic nervous system activation, which is stress. And when stress increases, logical, critical, creative, and contextual thinking decrease. So by calming the body, you're restoring your ability to think instead of just react. Right? If you're walking around worrying about everything all the time, you're just in reaction mode. You're not able to be intentional. Viktor Frankl says between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is the ability to choose our response. And in that response lies our growth and freedom. But if you don't relax your muscles, which is going to help restore access to your thinking brain, there is no space to respond. So by becoming aware of your physiology, and by doing things that relax the body, you can just let your whole body go limp. It's called the limp noodle. Or you can find where there's a lot of tension and squeeze those muscles and then hold for 5 seconds and then relax it. Either way is fine. You're restoring your ability to be intentional. You're getting out of your animal nature, which is fight, flight, freeze response, and back into your human, which is the ability to think. That's part of what separates us from other animals, is our ability to think logically, critically, creatively, and contextually. But when you default into survival brain, you're no longer human anymore. And you're just flowing with one catastrophic worry to the next, to the next, to the next. So calm the body. Start to be aware. You're going to start to feel that your muscles are really tight. This is done through what's called interoception, the experience of the embodied self, and start to relax the body. And then you'll be able to have some logic restored. Wait a second. That's pretty illogical. That's a possibility, but that's not a probability. That's a really great statement for you to say. Once you got to calm the body first. Otherwise, you don't have enough brain power to do any sort of cognitive restructuring. But anyway, number 2, I want you to start intentionally building resilience. Okay, this is basically going to be how you're going to deal with bad things if they do happen. Life is going to throw you curveballs. It's inevitable. David Goggins basically says, do something that sucks every single day. I'll do it in the David Goggins impersonation. You know, a lot of people, they're just sitting on the couch and they're not doing bleep with their lives. Well, what I'm going to tell you is you need to get off the couch and quit being a beep. And you need to do something that sucks every single day, Like, for example, I just woke up and I'm pushing this log down the road. No, anyway, but he like carries logs and like he does all kinds of stuff, but he's actually got a point in all seriousness. When you intentionally do something that sucks, you're developing what's called the mental callus. Think of it like if you play guitar, right? Eventually you're going to get calluses on your fingers, which it's like this hard piece of skin that makes it to where it doesn't hurt whenever you play guitar. The reason why a lot of people quit playing guitar is because it hurts so much whenever you first start playing, because your hands haven't built calluses yet. And it's no different with your ability to endure hardship. Like, yeah, you need to be calming the body. You need to be, which will allow you to have logic and then remind yourself, hey, this is a possibility, but it's not a probability. That's really the core of what I want you to take away. But let's say that the stuff that you're worried about does happen. We also need to be doing things for you to handle it and not freak out, because this is going to give you confidence. You know what? Even if the bad thing does happen, I'm really good at handling things. So what would that look like? It may be running. Run, and then whenever your mind is telling you stop, just go for another 2 or 3 minutes, right? That's going to build resilience in you. One thing that you can do too is just hold your arms out and literally set a timer, I think for 2 minutes. I found this exercise years ago, and it's actually really hard, you know, whenever you just keep holding your arms out, and it teaches you resilience. Another thing that you can do, and I got this from Jocko Willink, who's a former Navy SEAL commander. Make sure to check out the Jocko podcast. He's literally an incredible individual. He's got great books on leadership too. I'm reading one of them now. It's called Leadership Strategies and Tactics or something. Anyway, I also do a Jocko impersonation. It's terrible, but he basically says, when something bad happens, say the word good and see a positive that can come from it, right? Whenever I started to do this, I think it's been about 3 years ago, it completely transformed my life. I started to realize how many difficult things were happening throughout the day that I wasn't responding the right way to. And things would go wrong inevitably, and it would be hard. I'd feel it in my body like, oh my God, there's nothing good that can come from this. But then I'd basically say out loud, good. And you got to say it confidently, good. And focus on something positive that can come from it, even if it's just making you stronger, even if it's just making you more resilient. You know what? I am becoming stronger from this because I'm learning to be more resilient. Sometimes that's the only thing that's good that's going to come from it. I want to be clear. We're not saying that the bad thing is good, right? Like if you have a flat tire on the way to work, that's not good. That's a bad thing. But what's something good that can come from that? Okay, well, maybe you have a spare, and now you're going to get better at learning how to change a spare tire, right? Maybe, this gave you a moment to appreciate the fact that you have a car, instead of having to walk to work or ride a bike to work. It's like, you know what, at the end of the day, at least I have a car to have a flat, something like that. And I believe in this so much, just to show you that I'm serious about this. I literally got the word good tattooed on my wrist, and it's ugly. And now that I'm looking at it, I've had this for a couple years. It's really like I should not have probably got it there, but I wanted it like right in front of my face. Good, just to remind me. It literally allows you to turn every bad situation into a positive. Now, sometimes I want to be clear, there are some exceptions. Like if you lose a loved one, you shouldn't use this. And there's definitely some exceptions to this. But I'm just talking about most things that happen in life, with very few exceptions, there's something good that you can walk away from. And this will help rewire your brain. So anyway, with that being said, make sure to click subscribe, join the Fearless family if you're wanting more videos like this. If you want to be anxiety-free, panic attack-free, trauma-free, that's what this channel is all about. If you would help me out, please smash that thumb. Don't smash it. That sounded very violent. Just kind of lightly tap. Just give it a little tap, tap, tappy. Have you ever seen Happy Gilmore? Just tap it in. Just tap it in. Give it a little tap, tappy. If you've never seen Happy Gilmore, that makes no sense to you. But anyway, comment something. All this stuff helps it kind of get into the algorithm so we can help spread the word. And also, if you wanted to work with my team to help you overcome anxiety, panic attacks, heal from trauma, depersonalization, derealization, all that stuff, there's a link below to apply. We'd love to help you become symptom-free. That is it, and I will talk to you very, very soon.